If you're growing at 30%, but you're only profitable at 20%, you see how your Etsy shop is going to cost you money, even though it's both growing and profitable? That is the number one reason why people give up on Etsy, is they do not understand that your Etsy business is going to maybe cost you money or break even during growth. And when you're just starting your Etsy shop, you're only gonna have growth. And with any Etsy shop that just opened up, you're not gonna get that money on your bank account much later. And your 20% might not even realize until much in the future, until you really start generating sales and you hit a plateau and you don't have the growth when you're actually starting to see that money. If you're living paycheck to paycheck, it is very unfortunate, but you need to have extra money and you need to have the ability or the discipline not to touch the money that comes from your Etsy business. Have an account where you're not gonna touch it. It's gonna be going back into the business, okay? If you have that discipline, then you have what it takes to open up an Etsy shop. I do a lot of hand-holding. I've opened a lot of Etsy shop myself. I help a lot of people open up Etsy shops, and that's the number one reason that people do not succeed, is that they do not realize that it costs them money, at least for the first few months. A lot of people used to ask me if they're able to sell on Etsy without spending advertisement. I used to say that, maybe if you find the right product, if you get enough listings and you really high listing volume, then you might have the chance to do that. I stopped saying that because the reality is you need to invest into advertisement, okay? You cannot grow on Etsy without advertisement. I've had bestsellers before. I've had successful Etsy listings without advertisement, but that's very, very rare. And by the way, bestsellers don't mean anything. Bestsellers just means that you maybe sell a day, an order a day. It really doesn't, it's more for the buyers than it is for the sellers to indicate that they're doing a good job. And so you need to run advertisement, and that's like a detail, by the way. You need to understand that it's gonna cost you money to grow on Etsy. And that's the number one reason people do not succeed on Etsy. I've worked with a lot of people, and that is number one reason. If you can figure this out, I'm gonna talk about that in this video, but you can figure this out, you're going to have a much better chance to really succeed on Etsy. So what do the top sellers do? By the way, if you do need money, like today, you really need money, just get more hours at your current job. Put yourself in a position where you are not desperate for money. I know it's unfair, it's just the way it is. To build a business, you can't build a business on nothing, on no money. It's gonna cost you money. It's gonna cost you investments. It's just the way it works. Now, I've left my 9 to 5 because it is profitable, but not initially. What a lot of top sellers do is that they figure out their total order volume, right? They don't think about, hey, I sold this at $10, but I spent $12 to really, that's not how they think. They take their total order volume, right? They say 10 sales, let's just say $10 each, or 10 sales and you made $1,000. That's your total order volume. Some of them made 8, it cost 8, some of them 12, but your average is $10 per order. Again, some of them might be less, some of them might be more, but your total order volume is 10. You subtract how much it costs you to make that product, whether you're paying to a manufacturer or a print-on-demand supplier, or you're doing it yourself. Say it's $5. Okay, now you have $5 to work with. How much did it cost you on advertisement to sell the 10 orders? Oh, it cost me $2. Again, divide that by 10, cost me $2. Now you have $3 to work with. Whatever the fees are, subtract $1. Now you have $2 to work with. Now you know that you can increase your advertisement. You can double the spend on your advertisement. If it costs you $2 to advertise or you know that you can double your advertisement. I've done that with my Etsy shop. I've always maximized my growth as fast as possible during the beginning. Now here's the thing, this math, once you figure out that math, you have to understand, you absolutely have to understand that math will not realize until later down the road. But the way that math is gonna actually look like in the beginning is you're gonna have to fund all of it. Especially if you manufacture yourself, you're gonna have to buy inventory, pay for equipment, all that stuff beforehand. But you have to realize that once you figure out the total math and you know that you're profitable at 20%, you might be able to only pull it out later down the road. And even the sales that you make initially, Etsy won't give it to you until much, much later. So this is something that people don't understand. But once you figure out the total order volume and you understand you're spending $2 on ads and you have $2 in profit, you know that you can double your advertisement spend. And that's why I try to maximize to $1,000 in advertisement spend as fast as I possibly can. Now everybody knows you won't spend $100,000. You'll probably spend $100 or $50 a day if you have that set to your advertisement spend, maybe higher during holiday season. My point is that I try to use up all the profits that I can. And then two, I know that I'm gonna have to spend more, even though that math exists, I know that I'm gonna have to reinvest into the business. That's how I grew my Etsy shops. And that's how I recommend everybody grow their Etsy business. It costs money, it's very annoying, it takes time, but if you can't withhold that, if you can't have the discipline to not spend the money or to not reinvest, you're not gonna grow on Etsy. And here's the other thing is, a lot of people don't mention, you have to pay stupid tax. Everybody has to do that. The nature of growth, the nature of building something is that you don't know what you're doing. You're figuring it out. Your advertisements won't always work. I know I always say you can't grow on Etsy without advertisement, but your advertisement might not even work. And a lot of people don't even work, especially if you got the wrong product, you're not, maybe you have your listings not up to snuff. You need to figure all this out, and that's going to cost you more money. So even though I'm saying 20% profit margin, maybe that's going to eat up another 10% just by figuring stuff out. Not knowing that you need to optimize the listings, not knowing what you should provide value or niche down. All of these things you need to figure out, and that's going to cost you money. Okay, but you need to figure that out. Figure out your total order volume, figure out the math, and ask yourself, can I sustain the growth? Can I pay for the growth? If not, I would recommend do a 9 to 5, really put money aside, save it aside, and really work with some money on the side, an ability not to touch the money. Create a separate bank account, create a separate account where money's gonna come in there and you're not gonna touch it. No matter if your son's birthday's coming up and you don't have the money to fund it, don't touch that money, let it grow. Don't starve the asset, the baby, the new thing that you're growing with before it has a chance to walk. And until you can do that, until you can really have the discipline, you're not going to succeed on Etsy. This is the number one reason people don't succeed on Etsy, because they think Aunt Sally across the street makes money selling whatever, and I have all these bills stacked up, and I'm going to open up an Etsy shop to pay for these bills. That's not how it works. If you want to pay for those bills, get more hours. Start working in a business that already has revenue, that is reoccurring, that has the ability to hire employees. That's profit right off the bat. Day one that you're working for them, that's going to be profit. And with business, it's just not like that. And I used to say, people used to ask me, can I sell on Etsy? Can I be successful without spending advertisements? And I used to say, yeah, if you find the right product, if you optimize your listings, if you really get the volume of listings, then you could probably, now I pretty much don't ever say that. I always say you need to run ads. In fact, the more aggressive, the better the growth. It's just the way it works. It's unfortunate. The rich get richer. It sucks, but it's just the way it is. And let me know if you have any questions in the comments below. If you guys want to sign up for any of the courses down below, we have free stuff, free content you can learn from. And if you're interested in the seller program, check out the link again in the description below. Until next time, you guys have a great one.